Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about the cytoplasm and the cytoskeleton. So let's not wasting your time, let's get right to it. Now when we're talking cytoskeleton, we're talking structure. We're talking protection, we're talking support for the cell. And it does it in a variety of ways. The cytoskeleton is not just one thing. As you can see, it's three things. Microfilaments, which we just referenced when we talked about flagella and cilia. Intermediate filaments and microtubules. And the intermediate filaments, again, that's not a great name. The other two have actual names. The intermediate filament is size-wise in between the two, so that's why it gets its intermediate title of it. But they work together to keep the cell shape and structure intact, and we're going to look at those ways. You can see that looking at that picture beside me there, you can kind of see the various structures. It's very reminiscent to what a bacteria cell wall might look like, with different components working together to strengthen and reinforce. Your cell has the same way, it just doesn't have that hardened cell wall on the outside. But we'll get into each of these on their own particular slide. Okay, continuing with the cytoskeleton, the first one we're going to talk about is the microfilaments. And examples of those we've already talked about is the flagella and cilia. The microfilaments are in that picture beside me, the green ring around the edge. Okay, those are meant to really keep that shape intact. Kind of a thick material around the inner edge, and similar to what like rubber bands, they resist tension. So if the cell is pressed against, they can kind of absorb that pressure, and once it's removed, bounce right back into their own shape. But they're inside the cell, inside the plasma membrane. Again, the idea of keeping it in shape by absorbing pressure and then bouncing back once that pressure is removed. Okay, continuing to talk about microfilaments. If you have been or will be in an A&P class, you'll see this kind of image, this actin subunit and this intertwined, almost like a pearl necklace of some kind, except green. But that's an actin filament, and that's super important to the process of contracting muscles. One of the things that microfilaments can provide is that idea of muscle movement, muscle contraction. Those actin subunits, those little bitty dots on the larger green circle, that's where a myosin would touch after it's been powered by an ATP molecule. It basically just taps it, and that's what generates that energy for that contraction. And as long as that sensation is needed, then the myosin just keeps tapping it. But anyway, you talk about that in an A&P class. These subunits, because it goes around the cell, when it comes time for cell division, you can't keep that circle intact, so they are able to break down and then reform quickly in the new cell as when it happens. Excuse me. It can help with the movement of a cell. If you know what an amoeba is, how amoeba moves, it just kind of, part of it is reaches out and then grabs on and pulls the rest of the body to it. in some kind of a crawling type manner, but it can be a part of that, or it is part of that process. Next, we want to talk about the intermediate filaments. Intermediate filaments are all over. They make a huge crisscross pattern all around the cell, and they're designed to kind of connect everything together. You can think of a big spider web if you want to, but they connect everything together, and you can see from the picture, their structure is pretty strong. I mean, they are pretty strong, very stable, not easily broken, but it's just a very thick wave of, like I said, a spider web, with the idea of attaching to everything and holding it in place. Again, helps the cell structure, but because it's kind of all over the place, it's not part of any movement that a cell might have. But again, just designed to keep everything in place. It'd be like if Spider-Man was in the cell and he'd shoot a web towards the mitochondria, and then one towards the chloroplast, and one towards the ribosomes and the ERs and the Golgi, and just kind of connected all those things to kind of keep them in place. That's kind of what the intermediate filaments might look like. Okay, our third member of the cytoskeleton is the microtubules. And the microtubules, you may be familiar with. They're the tubules that I mentioned previously in a video, but they're the ones that attach themselves to a chromosome during the cell division, mitosis. It's actually during the earlier parts of cell division, but they'll drag the chromosomes in the middle, and then with the help of the centrosome, pull the half of those chromosomes to the edge. You can kind of see the shape there. Again, hollow. Okay, kind of a combination of A and B tubules in the subunit. That's not super important, but they're the largest, okay, of the cytoskeleton, and they do help with movement. They certainly help with materials being moved within the cell, part of that mitosis. But when you look at prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, you'll see the centrosome with the poles and those long tubes that are used to pull the chromosomes. Those are the microtubules. Okay, now on to the cytoplasm. Again, not a lot of discussion here, just recognizing what it is. But all the space of a cell that's empty, that's the cytoplasm. So there's no actual place in the cell that's empty. It's either got an organelle or it's got cytoplasm. Okay, one of the two. And you can think of the cytoplasm kind of a gel-like substance. It's called cytosol, which is where it gets its name, cytoplasm. But you can think jelly, watery, semi-solid. But it's the idea of it gives the organelle something to kind of nestle in or rest in, to be safe, jostle around. So if you think about, if you got a porcelain or a china plate, something breakable, glass, and you want to ship it somewhere, you're not just going to put that item into a box and pray for the best. No, you're going to wrap it up. You're going to put bubble wrap in there. You're going to maybe packing peanuts, if you know what those are, but some sort of styrofoam to keep that object safe during transport. That's what the cytoplasm, its job is, to keep the organelles and everything safe throughout the process. Well, that's our video of the cytoplasm cytoskeleton. The next time we get together, we will be talking about the mitochondria and the chloroplast. So we'll see you then.